understand this quiet power, we must first unlearn what society has taught us about endurance. The INFJ does not wear their scars as a badge of honor to win sympathy or admiration. They do not turn their survival into a competitive sport. Instead, their strength is woven entirely into the way they move through the ordinary days and the darkest nights of their lives. Imagine a solitary lighthouse standing on a jagged cliff. The waves crash against it, the fierce winds howl, yet the lighthouse does not fight the storm. It simply remains. It holds its ground, keeping its inner light burning steadily to guide others to safety. This is the essence of the INFJ mind. They process the world with a devastating level of depth. They feel the unspoken grief in a crowded room. They hear the words that are swallowed and never said. Carrying this profound awareness of the human condition is an immense burden, yet they carry it without asking for applause. This invisible heavy lifting, done day after day, builds a kind of spiritual muscle that most people will never fully comprehend. Let us delve into the first pillar of their hidden resilience, which is their deep intuitive insight. For an INFJ, intuition is not a magical party trick, nor is it merely a vague gut feeling. It is a highly sophisticated, subconscious processing system. It is an early warning radar that constantly scans the horizon of their lives. Long before a crisis actually strikes, the INFJ has already felt the subtle drop in the barometric pressure of their environment. They notice the slight hesitation in a friend's voice, the micro-expressions of deception in a colleague, or the shifting dynamics within a family structure. While most people are caught completely off guard when the storm finally hits, falling to their knees in shock and confusion, the INFJ has been watching the dark clouds gather for weeks. This does not mean they do not feel the pain of the event. It means they have already begun the grueling work of emotional preparation. Because they foresee the fracturing of relationships or the collapse of circumstances, they mentally rehearse the outcomes. They sit in the quiet sanctuary of their own minds and walk through the burning building before the fire even starts. They ask themselves how they will survive, who they will need to protect, and what pieces they will need to pick up from the ashes. By the time reality breaks apart, the INFJ has already drawn the map for recovery. This gives them an extraordinary advantage in bouncing back from tragedy. When others are paralyzed by the sudden chaos, the INFJ is already taking the first quiet steps toward healing. They adapt with a fluid grace that leaves others completely baffled. People might look at an INFJ surviving a devastating heartbreak or a massive life upheaval and wonder how they are holding it together so well. The truth is, they have already mourned the loss before it was even fully lost. Their foresight is their shield, carefully forged in the quiet moments of deep observation. The second pillar of their fortitude is something the modern world often dismisses as a weakness. That pillar is empathy. We are often taught that to be strong, we must be detached, cold, and calculating. We are told that feeling too much makes us vulnerable to being broken. But for the INFJ, empathy is the very crucible in which their resilience is forged. When you possess the ability to step entirely out of your own ego and sink deeply into the emotional reality of another human being, you gain a massive, universal perspective on pain and survival. The INFJ has sat quietly with the grieving widow. They have listened to the desperate confessions of the defeated. They have absorbed the silent tears of those who have lost everything. By bearing witness to the vast ocean of human suffering, they learn a profound truth. They learn that humans are built to survive. Moving deeper into their mind, we encounter the third reason for their unshakable nature. An INFJ operates from a fiercely values-driven core. Imagine a ship caught in a terrifying hurricane. The waves are towering, the wind is tearing at the sails, and the stars are entirely hidden by the storm. In this darkness, a ship without a compass is doomed to be smashed against the rocks. For the INFJ, their deeply held moral values are the internal compass that glows brightly in the dark. These are not values they borrowed from a passing trend, nor are they superficial rules adopted to impress society. These are profound, intensely examined truths that they have etched into their very soul. When life becomes chaotic, when temptations arise, or when the pressure to conform becomes suffocating, the INFJ simply looks inward. They do not bend. This unyielding commitment to their integrity provides a psychological anchor that most people spend a lifetime searching for. If an INFJ loses their job, faces financial ruin, or is betrayed by someone they deeply love, they will undoubtedly feel the crushing weight of the grief. But they will not compromise their humanity to find a quick way out. They will not step on others to elevate themselves. They will readily accept immense short-term suffering if it means they can keep their soul intact. This requires a terrifying amount of bravery. To stand alone against the current, knowing that taking the easy path would betray who they are, is a testament to their monumental willpower. When the storm finally passes, the INFJ emerges with a clear conscience. They do not have to waste precious mental energy dealing with the guilt or internal fracture that comes from betraying oneself. Their foundation remains solid rock, entirely untouched by the desperate panic that destroys so many others. The fourth layer of their quiet strength is an intense, reflective self-awareness. It is human nature to run away from our own mistakes. When we fail, our instinct is to look away, to blame circumstances, or to point our fingers at others. The ego is incredibly fragile, and looking at our own flaws is painful, but the INFJ does not run. They have turned their internal world into a quiet laboratory of personal growth. When they face a massive defeat, they do not hide from the pain. They sit right in the middle of it. They painstakingly rewind the tape of their lives, analyzing every word, every choice, and every intention. This is not out of a desire to punish themselves, though they must fight the urge toward perfectionism. Rather, it is a sacred pursuit of wisdom. By bravely examining their own darkness, their flaws, and their missteps, they extract the precious gold of life lessons. They figure out exactly where they went wrong, what boundaries they failed to set, and how they can be better tomorrow. Because they have already done the excruciating work of facing their own shadows, they cannot be easily broken by the criticism of the world. You cannot destroy a person who has already held a magnifying glass to their own soul and chosen to love themselves anyway. This relentless self-awareness makes them incredibly adaptable. If life knocks them down, they use the fall to study the ground. They rise wiser, sharper, and more grounded than before. The world sees them simply standing back up, but it never sees the intense internal negotiations, the shedding of old skin, and the quiet rebirth that happened in the shadows. The fifth reason they are vastly stronger than they let on is their breathtaking capacity for quiet persistence. We live in an era of instant gratification. People want success, healing, and love to happen overnight. When obstacles arise, the modern impulse is to abandon the project, quit the relationship, or loudly complain about the unfairness of it all. The INFJ, however, possesses the endurance of an ancient marathon runner. They do not operate on the timeline of days or weeks. They operate on the timeline of years, decades, and lifetimes. When an INFJ commits to a vision, whether it is healing a generational family trauma, mastering a complex craft, or slowly bringing a beautiful idea to life, they lock in with a quiet, terrifying determination. They do not need a crowd cheering them on. They do not need daily validation. They simply put their head down and do the work. This persistence is born from their deeply held belief that nothing truly meaningful comes easily. They expect the winter to be long and cold. Therefore, when the frost sets in and everyone else gives up, the INFJ is comfortably settling into their quiet rhythm. They know they will face exhaustion. They know their heart will break a dozen times along the way. But they have learned the art of resting without quitting. They will retreat to their quiet corners, read a comforting book, take a solitary walk through the forest, and let the tears fall without judgment. And then, the next morning, they will quietly resume their march. This silent perseverance is a fortress. They outlast their critics. They outlast their own doubts. They weather the harshest seasons of life simply because they refuse to stop walking toward the light they see in the distance. It is an endurance that leaves no footprints but moves mountains. The sixth and final revelation of their hidden fortitude lies in their mastery of emotional regulation. To be an INFJ is to live with a nervous system that is uniquely tuned to the highest frequencies of human emotion. They feel anger, joy, sorrow, and fear with an intensity that could easily burn a person alive. If they allowed themselves to be entirely ruled by these massive waves of feeling, their lives would be a chaotic cycle of dramatic explosions and devastating crashes. But they have learned to build a magnificent internal dam. This is not the toxic suppression of feelings. The INFJ knows that bottling up emotions is a poison to the spirit. Instead, it is the profound art of creating a pause. Between the moment a deeply triggering event occurs and the moment the INFJ responds, there is a sacred, invisible space. In that microscopic fraction of time, the INFJ is performing miracles. They are breathing through the blinding flash of anger. They are unhooking themselves from the panic of the situation. They are evaluating the emotional state of the person attacking them, recognizing the pain beneath the other person's hostility. And then they consciously choose their response. They respond with measured clarity, devastating logic, and deeply rooted boundaries. When everyone around them is losing their minds, screaming and making irreversible mistakes, the INFJ stands like a pillar of calm. This deliberate regulation of their inner world requires more discipline and mental fortitude than almost any other human endeavor. It allows them to protect their energy, maintain their dignity, and offer a steadying hand to those who are drowning in the chaos. The mental strength of the INFJ is not a cinematic explosion. It is the quiet turning of the earth. It is the silent growth of a forest after a devastating fire. It is a masterpiece painted in the colors of intuition, empathy, self-awareness, persistence, and emotional grace. They may never shout about their victories, and they may never demand that the world acknowledge the heavy burdens they carry. But their quiet resilience is what holds the fabric of their lives, and often the lives of those they love, entirely together. They survive the darkest nights, and they emerge not hardened and bitter, but softer, wiser, and endlessly compassionate. If you possess this quiet strength, may you always protect your peace. May you recognize the magnificent power within your gentle soul. Thank you for joining us on this deep exploration of the mind and spirit. May your days be filled with quiet clarity, and may you always find warmth in the sanctuaries you build within yourself. Until we meet again, walk gently, but know that you are beautifully unshakable.